Hey guys, for those of you that don't know me, I have been a Challenger player since set 3, and in this video I'm going to be going over how to play the 5 best performing comps coming out of set 11 PBE. Now you might be wondering how exactly I got this data. Actually, special thanks to Impetuous Panda. Basically what he did was he organized 200 Challenger lobbies on PBE, and then he recorded the placements of each comp throughout every single game. Through that data, I basically looked at the best performing ones, and I took a deeper look into how to play these specific comps. I didn't include special comps like Kobuko Reroll just because they're really dependent on the hero augment. These 5 comps are basically the most consistent, most played, and also like the highest average placement. One quick thing is by the time this video is posted, I am streaming on Twitch, and I also have a second YouTube channel where I go over gameplay and my thought process, so feel free to check both of these out. And without further ado, I'll jump right into the guide. So jumping into the first comp is going to be for Porcelain Flex. This is going to be a level 8 comp, and you generally want to default towards this comp if you have like the traditional AD items, for example, like Guinsoo's, Last Whisper, Deathblade, GS, Gunblade. I would say like Ashe is probably the best 4-cost AD carry at the moment. Kaisa is the other one, but I think she feels like a little weak from PvE. Basically, the level 9 board is going to look like this. Your 4 Porcelain units are going to be Ashe, Lux, Lissandra, and Amumu. You're going to fill up your board with 3 Faded, which is going to be Set, Syndra, and Aphelios. This is because Aphelios also gives you 2 Sniper, and also gives your team Shred. And you're just going to fill up your team with 4 Arcanist and 4 Warden. So for example, Nautilus and Alawi is going to give you Arcanist and Warden, and Set is also the last Warden. This gives you 4 Porcelain, 4 Warden, 4 Arcanist. Note that this board is high roll. I'm going to be going over like the level 8 board on how to get here. But basically, itemization wise, Ashe is going to really like Gunblade and Guinsoo's. She's really like a scaling unit, and it's useful for Gunblade is good for her because she heals up her front line, so it gives her more time to scale. For the third item, I would say like if you don't have Shred, like if you don't have Even Shroud, you probably want Last Whisper. Otherwise, you could go something like Infinity Edge, Deathblade, Red Buff, GS. These are all fine on Ashe. And all your leftover items could just go on Syndra. Syndra is really good with blue buff, Gunblade +1, probably Deathcap, JG. So the other variation to like this, like let's say like you don't hit the Ashe, there's a different variation you can play with 4 Porcelain, and which you just primary carry the Syndra. The board will basically look like this. You're just playing around 6 Arcanists and 4 Porcelain. In this case, you actually do not want to itemize the Ashe because Syndra is your primary. And then you generally want, like, the problem with this is you need a lot of frontline. So generally you want to go for something like a 3-star Alawi if possible. All your tank items go on your Alawi, and all of your damage goes on your Syndra. So notice that both of these are like level 9 boards. Chances are you're going to be rolling at 8, and you're not going to be hitting like the Lissandra, or you might miss the Ashe, or like you might miss like Syndra or Set. The level 8 board that you want to look towards is going to be basically this. Actually, it's like a level 7 board. Basically, you want like your Aphelios 2 to hold all of your items for Ashe until you get Ashe 2. And you want your Kindred 2 to hold all of your AP items until you get the Syndra. So like for example, like at level 8, if you're rolling down and you hit Aphelios 2 but you're still on Ashe 1, you just primary the Aphelios for now, and you just make the item switch later. If you're playing the Kindred carry, you generally want to play 2 Dryad, so you just play Ornn. This also gives you Behemoth, synergizes very well with Thresh. But basically, this is the 4 Porcelain comp, really strong in my opinion, and a great comp to default to on set 11 release. So coming into the next comp, we're going to have Lillia AP Flex. If we're talking about level 8 comps, then this would be the comp you want to play if you want to play towards AP. The comp is going to look like this at level 8. You're basically playing around 5 Mythic and 4 Invoker. The 4 Invoker units are going to be Lillia, Alune, Kog'Maw, and Annie. For your tanks, it's just going to be these 5 units. These are your 4-cost tanks, and I would say that whoever you 2-star first, you want to put all of your tank items on them. Itemization for Lillia is going to be Shojin, Gunblade +1. Third item could be like an AP item, Deathcap, JG, Archangels, all pretty good. What I like about this comp is that it has a very high cap, because if you're able to go 9, you're able to secondary carry either the Azir or the Hui. Basically, you end up dropping out of 3 Mythic, and then you're just playing like a lot of higher value units. So for example, your level 9 board could look something like this at level 9. Basically, you end up playing the Azir, which is also like an Invoker for 4 Invoker, and it's also a Dryad, which lets you tech in like an Ornn. Because you're playing Behemoth, you have access to Udyr as well, which is like a really strong front line. Basically, itemization for Azir is very similar to like Lillia. It's just Shojin and some AP items. Alternatively, right, you could also play Hui, which is like another really strong AP carry. Hui is also like a mythic unit. So if you're playing Hui, you probably do not want to play this Tahm Kench because you already have 3 Mythic, and if you're not playing Tahm, you probably drop out of like the other shitter bruiser like Silas. And then you just fill up like the 9th unit with like a random tank, and you're just like trio carrying like the Lillia, the Hui, and the Azir. Really, really strong comp in my opinion. Definitely a good comp to default towards if you have like AP items or if you get like a Mythic opener. Pretty easy transition because like notice how Lillia is a Mythic invoker. Kog'Maw is also like a Mythic invoker as well. So these two units synergize like very well together and is like a very easy transition from one to the other. So next comp on the list is going to be Reroll Mythic. So this comp is probably the most consistent comp that was also like performing really, really well on PvE. What this comp looks like at level 7 is just going to be the 5 Mythic units where you're primary carrying the Bard and primary tanking your Tahm Kench. And then you're going to fill up the rest of your board with Alawi. This gives you 2 Warden, 2 Arcanist because you have Nico, and also gives you play Teemo as well for 2 Trick Shot. Itemization wise, you want to have Gunblade, Gwynsu's +1 on Bard. Third item could be another Gwynsu's, it could be GS. It could also be like a random like AD item like IE, random AP item. I think he also has like some random AP scaling as well. But basically, after you get like 3-star Bard and 3-star Tahm Kench at level 7, your level 8 in is going to be Shen. And this is just going to give you Ghostly and also Behemoth. There is a chance when you're playing this comp where you get like a Mythic Spat, in which case you probably do not want to play the Shen. You actually just want to play another Mythic unit. So in this case, I probably would just throw in like a Lillia, and then this lets you play 7 Mythic and you Mythic Spat someone else. Like for example, probably either the Teemo or the Alawi. This is also pretty good because if you're able to go 8 or 9, it gives you access to Hui. And Hui is like a very, very strong level 9 unit you can play around towards the late game. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be talking about the legendary boards. So the legendary boards are level 9 and 10 comps. I would say they don't really have like a predetermined set of units that you exactly want to play. It's more of like a whichever 5 cost you're carrying, you want to fill your frontline with like the corresponding units with the same traits. These are boards that you can't really directly play into. You want to stabilize at level 8 or 9 first with 4 Porcelain or like Lillia AP Flex, and then you're able to push level 9 and 10, and then you transition into these boards for the win. That's why these boards have the highest win rate. In my opinion, there's 2 main variations. There's the Lillia variation and there's the Ashe variation. I'll go through both. The core to the Lillia variation is pretty simple. It's not that complicated. It's just going to be these 4 units. You basically get 3 Mythic and 2 Invokers, and you're playing around 2 4 costs and 2 5 costs. So if you're like primary carrying the Azir, right? Azir is a Dryad, so you want to play a second Dryad, so it's just going to be Ornn. And if you're playing Ornn, Ornn is a Behemoth, so you just want to play Udyr. And then because you're playing Nautilus for 3 Mythic, you always want like a second Warden. So the other Warden you generally want to play is going to be Set. And because Set is an Umbral unit, you just want to play a second Umbral unit. So you just play Silas. It's sort of like, depending on like the 5 costs you hit, you just look at the trait and then look for the other 5 cost legendary that fits into that trait, and then you play around that unit. Of course, like there are times like let's say like you don't hit like the Ornn, right? You just don't play the Ornn, and then if you don't play the Ornn, you don't play like the Udyr. You just find like a random like 2-star frontline, anyone that you hit. So let's say for example, you find like a random Rakan instead of like the unit that complements the Azir. If you're playing the Rakan, chances are you want to play the second Dragon Lord, Diana. And then Diana is a Sage, so you just secondary carry the Wukong. So that's like what I mean by like not looking like at a specific like set of units. It's really like you're able to go 9, you have like 20 gold to play around, find the first secondary carry, and then you build your board around that unit, and then usually that's strong enough to win you the game. Itemization wise, for this AP variation, Azir and Hui use very similar items. It's Shojin plus 2 AP items, and then Wukong uses stuff like IE, Hodge, GA. Onto the AZ variation, again, really similar. I would say like the core to the AZ variation is going to be 2 Porcelain, Ashe, Lissandra, and then 2 Sniper, Philios, Ashe, and then you just play 3 Faded. So same thought process here. Because you're playing the Thresh, you just want a second Behemoth, which is going to be Udyr. And then you want a second Warden, which is going to be Nautilus. And then if you're playing Umbral, you just play Silas. Fuck it. And then you just find like a random backline carry that's really strong. I would look like, again, like the best backline carries are probably going to be Hui, Azir at this point in the current meta. You could also look for like Wukong, which is really good secondary carry, and Udyr is also like a really strong like secondary carry as well. But this is sort of like how you play around like the level 9 AD board. It's usually going to be Ashe, Wukong, and then you splash in Dragon Lord usually, because Wukong synergizes very, very well with Dragon Lord. So just forget like this Udyr, forget this Sylas. You just look for like the Dragon Lord units, Rakan, Diana. And then you could also splash in Janna as well. Okay, final comp I'll be covering in this guide is going to be Vertical Faded. This is another level 8 AP comp. Only thing is that this comp relies heavily on you getting a spat. So I would say if you have AP items and you get a spat, you should play towards Vertical Faded. If you don't, just play towards AP Lillia. So the reason why this comp needs a spat is because it relies on the 5 Faded Power Spike at level 6 and the 7 Faded Power Spike at level 8. At level 8, if you don't have the spat, you basically cannot hit 7 Faded. And basically you will eventually just get outscaled. But this is what like the level 8 board looks like. You're playing Set, you're playing Thresh as your primary tank, and then later on, if you don't have 3-star Thresh, you move over the tank items, so either your Set or your Ornn. And then you primary carry your Kindred and your Syndra. So basically, when you're playing 7 Faded, a lot of times you want to stabilize at level 6 with the Spat, with 5 Faded, and then slow roll for Kindred 3. After you hit Kindred 3, you just push levels and play around 7 Faded later, and you secondary carry the Syndra. Itemization for Syndra and Kindred. So Kindred really likes like AP items and damage items. So for example, Death Cap is good, Gunblade, GS, Guardbreaker. I think Guardbreaker is particularly good just because if you have Reaper in, it allows Kindred the ability to crit, and then Guardbreaker has built-in crit onto the item, so it benefits her a lot more than something like John Slayer. And then for Syndra, typical is just blue buff, Gunblade, and then probably Death Cap or JG. And then if you hit 3-star Thresh as well, you just put all of your tank items on your Thresh. Pretty straightforward comp, really strong if you get the spat. Okay, this sums up my set 11 comps guide on release. In 2 or 3 days, I will be releasing an actual flex guide on how to play the current meta, but I'm just going to wait like a few days for the meta to settle in first before I give you guys any inaccurate information. I will be streaming, just to remind you guys, by the time this video is posted, so would love if you guys check me out, and would appreciate the YouTube sub if you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.